So I'm reading through the book of Daniel, and there are a few things that I just thought was very interesting that I want to point out. So, to set this up, in chapter 3, there are 3 guys whose names I might butcher, but we're going to go with it. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They are about to be thrown in the fiery furnace because the king Nebuchadnezzar at this time had set a rule, a new law, saying that whenever the music plays, they have to bow down and worship this golden image that he had created. It was a false god. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to do it. They were like, God is able to save us, but even if he does it, we're not going to bow down and worship your fake god. If you go down a little bit further, you'll read how Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are thrown into the fire, but they are actually not burnt up. The guys that threw them in the fire actually get burnt, and the king sees a 4th man unbound walking in the midst of the fire with the other 3 guys. So that 4th man is believed to be Jesus, walking around with them in the fire and protecting them from being burnt to a crisp. If you read a little bit more, King Nebuchadnezzar is watching all of this, and this experience, this miracle, brings him to faith, and he says, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted in him and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God." Later on, it basically says that King Nebuchadnezzar comes to faith, and it is because of that experience that he watched. Now, if you keep going over to chapter 6, this is when Daniel is being thrown into the lion's den, and you may or may not be familiar with the story, but essentially, so Daniel is promoted to a high status. He's some big official now. But these other guys that are also officials, they don't like Daniel for whatever reason, and they want to get him thrown into the lion's den. They want to kill him. They want him executed. But it says that these guys couldn't come up with anything on why he should be killed. So it says they could find no ground for complaint or any fault because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, "We shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God." So keep that in mind. They knew because he was faithful, they were not going to get him unless it was in connection with God. So somehow they convinced King Darius to set up this new law saying that for 30 days that nobody in the land can worship anybody or any other god except for the king. And so obviously they knew Daniel's character. They knew he was not going to fall for that. And it says that he went up to his room and he had windows in his upper chamber open towards Jerusalem. And he got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. So this was a regular thing. They knew that he had done this before and they were banking on him doing it again. And so he went up and he prayed and worshiped his God. So essentially they reported him, and the king actually didn't want to throw him into the lion's den, but they said, well, this is the law. You can't break the law. He broke the rules, and now he has to be thrown into the lion's den. And the King Darius actually says to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." And a lot of you may know this part of the story, but he's thrown into the lion's den, and God shuts the mouth of the lion, and he is not eaten by the lion. After all this happens, the king says, "Then King Darius wrote to all the people in the nation in languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions." Now, the thing that I got out of all of this is, as someone who I personally feel like I'm not the best communicator when it comes to speaking, I feel like I'm better at writing because I just have more time to think about what I'm going to say. But in the moment speaking, I feel like I'm not the best and I can trip up on it. But it never says that these guys, Daniel or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are going around just evangelizing hardcore on the street, telling everybody how they have to follow Jesus and, turn away from their sin, etc. They aren't mentioned doing that here. Yet the way they live their lives is the thing that is ministering and witnessing to people about God. Now, don't hear me saying that I don't think that you should evangelize or you shouldn't talk to people about Jesus or about God or anything. Literally, I'm making this video right now, so that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I feel like it is a big deal and it goes a long way how you decide to live your life on the day-to-day basis. For example, with Daniel, they knew that he was going to pray and he was going to be a faithful guy. That's what his character was, and they knew that if they wanted to get him thrown, into the lion's den and executed, that they had to make a law that was related to his God. Same with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were not about to bow down and worship this false god. So they got thrown into the fiery furnace. People knew them for their character and that they were faithful people, and the way they lived their lives spoke louder than the things that they said sometimes. So what I got out of this, and what I hope you take away from this, is if you are not the best communicator, or if you feel discouraged because you always trip up over your words whenever you try to talk to people about Jesus, or you're trying to evangelize, don't be so hard on yourself. Sometimes the way you live your life, as long as it is glorifying God, it is good enough. And that will speak louder than your words sometimes. So be encouraged. I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great day.